In this tutorial, you'll be learning how to create this professional mega menu. Where they click on this drop down here, it shows two columns for them to choose the content that they want to show. When they click on an option, the content changes. When they click on an option here, it displays this cool animation. Now on the real version, which looks like this, it's got the same animation, this content would change. But the cool part is now when they press on it displays that animation for it to go back in. I've replicated it here, and then it can go back down again, and then it goes back in. So if this interests you, then keep watching to find out how to create this. Okay, so I've just created the HTML boilerplate code. The only thing that I've added to it is this, I've linked this style sheet here, and then I've added box sizing border box and removed the browser's default margin and padding that sometimes adds to our document. And then I've simply changed the body background color to a light grey. So as you can see, this is what it looks like. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to import a font called OpenSans, which can be found on Google Fonts. I'll post a link to this in the description. We're going to copy the regular version and also the bold version. So we copy these two link tags. We'll create a comment in the head, which is where we paste it in, the link tags. So Google Fonts, just to separate it from the other content in the head tag. And then we're also going to copy this bold as well. We'll copy the latter link tag just for the bold because we've already imported this link tag, which is necessary for all Google Fonts. And then we're going to apply this font onto all elements in the document. So we apply it here. So now all of our elements will use this font by default unless specified otherwise. So okay, we can start creating the navigation now, the navbar. So we create a div. We'll give it a class of the navbar because this will be the uppermost navbar. It's not going to be the mega menu. We'll create that later. Inside it will contain 3 sections. The first section will be on the left side. The second section will be placed in the middle, horizontally. The third section will be placed to the right, horizontally as well. The middle section, we want to, basically this navbar is going to be a grid, but we want this middle section to be centered horizontally in the middle of the grid. So we say style equals justify self center, and we're also going to say text. We're also going to say text align center as well. Inside the first section, we're going to create a div. We'll give it a class of nav-left. Inside, we'll follow the formatting on the actual Cisco website. So the text or the children of the div will be product sign with plural. And then we'll copy that, create another one, support will be the text child, and then copy it again. This one will be partners. And then copy it one last time, it will be more. Okay, now we're going to style this section. Inside our style sheet, we're going to create a comment just to separate the main nav styling out from the other content in the style sheet. So it will call it main nav. We'll select the navbar class. Set the position to be relative because we're going to be using absolute positioning in the navbar, which will be positioned in relation to the navbar as we've added the relative position. And then we'll say display grid because we want to give it 3 columns, which we specify with this attribute, grid template columns attribute. Its value will be the repeat method. It's 3-1fr. In other words, create 3 columns of equal proportion. And then align items, so align vertically will be center. Width will be 100% of the document, but then we'll say max width, so 1700 pixels. So on larger screen sizes it will be 1700 pixels, but on smaller screen sizes it will be take up the full width of the document. The background colour will be white. The box shadow will be 0 horizontal offset, 0 vertical offset, 5 pixels spread. Its color will be RGBA, 0, 0, 0, or black, and then we'll give that a 0.1 opacity, and then we'll say margin 0 auto, so it'll be centered horizontally in the document. And then we need to give the navbar some styling, and then we'll need to give the nav left some styling. So we'll say nav left, float left, so it's displayed inline, just about using display inline block because that adds extra padding which you don't want. Set the font size 15 pixels, padding 40 pixels on the top, 0 on the right, 40 pixels on the bottom, 35 pixels on the left, and then we'll say cursor pointer, just to give a visual indicator to the user that they can click on these options. And then we'll say create a pseudo selector for these nav left class. So we'll say nav left hover. Its color will be hex value code of 007493. So a sort of dark turquoise color. Now if we check what this looks like now, you can close that. Yeah, so it's looking similar to this left side of the navbar on the actual Cisco website. The only difference is that it misses this downwards facing chevron. The way that we're going to import that is we're going to use Font Awesome. So again, I'll post a link to this in the description. Go on the website. I need to sign in. Okay, once I've signed in, we can click my profile icon and get access to the content delivery network. So paste that in our head. This will give us access to all the, well, free icons anyway, because I don't have a premium account available in Font Awesome. So copy it there. And then inside of the nav left, which contains the more text, we're going to create an I element, which stands for icon. We're going to give it a class, FAS, which all the Font Awesome icons have, and then FA hyphen chevron hyphen down. And now we see what this looks like. Yeah, it's looking good now. We've got a downward facing chevron. Now in this middle centered section, we're going to create a div. It's going to contain the text Cisco in all caps. Its class will be nav hyphen center. In the last section of the navbar, we're gonna it's going to contain a couple icons. So we'll create an icon element. We'll give it a class FAS because these will be Font Awesome icons. We'll copy this 2 more times. The first Font Awesome icon will be FA hyphen search. Second one will be FA user alt, and then the one after that will be FA globe, and then below that we're going to create a divider. This divider is going to basically be this GBEN text. It's ID because we're not planning to reuse it. It'll be nav hyphen lang. Inside of that we're going to create 2 more divs. GB and EN. Now we go to style sheet. As you can see, yeah, it's not styled correctly. And then we'll start nav center first. We'll say color will be hex value of 00 BCV. And then its font weight will be bolder, because we want it bold because it's going to simulate the Cisco logo. Font size will be 30 pixels. And then nav icons will be position relative, because we'll be using absolute positioning inside of it. Margin left will be auto to push it towards the right. Oh yeah, because we haven't actually Okay, so not pushed towards the right because we haven't actually applied it. So we go back and we apply the ID to this section. We'll say nav icons, and now it should be aligned to the right, as you can see. Let's go back to a style sheet. And we're going to style the icons inside the nav icons section. So we'll say color grey, font size 25 pixels to increase the size, padding 40 pixels, 35 pixels, 40 pixels, 0 on the left, and then navlang. This will be display flex. Flex direction will be column instead of row, which is the default value of flex. Font size 13 pixels to make it small. Line height to make to squidge the lines close together. Line height will also be 13 pixels. This will make the lines closer together. Position will be absolute, so we can position it relative to the nav icons container. Top will be 0, so its top pixel will be aligned with its container, which is the navlang section. But we will push it down, but with a margin top. So we'll push it down by 30 pixels. And then right, we'll align it with the right edge of the container, but then we'll also push it to the left by adding right margin, 35 pixels. And now we see, okay, this is not what we want. To solve this, we're going to go to this last icon. We're going to give it an inline style of padding right, and we'll say 60 pixels. Now if we see what it's looking quite good now because it's pushed towards the left because we added padding on the right icon. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to add this arrow, because as you can see when we click on the mega menu or to open the mega menu, this arrow appears below the more section on the navbar, and we want to create that now. So below this section but above the navbar div, because it's still contained in the navbar, we're going to create a div. We'll give it an ID of up arrow. We'll style this now. It's display at the moment will be block because we want to see what we're creating, but we'll change this to none because we don't want it to be displayed until we click to open the mega menu. Position will be absolute, so it's positioned in relation to the navbar, which is position relative. Its top will be 90 pixels, offset from the top of its container. Left will be 330 pixels. Width is 0. Height is 0. And then I'll give it a border left. This is to basically create the triangle. 15 pixels, solid, transparent, because we don't want to show anything. Border right will be the same, so we'll just copy it. And then border bottom will also be the same, except it won't be transparent. It will be a hex code of 1E4471. Now we see what this looks like. Yeah, it's positioned correctly. Now we're going to start creating the mega menu. So we'll go to our HTML document, and we'll need to. Okay, we're going to create a comment now to separate our mega menu out from the navbar. So we're going to say navbar end there, and we're going to create a new div. We'll give it a class. More nav. The class will be for the styling, and it'll also have an ID. Its ID will be for JavaScript, and that will be more nav in camel case. It's going to contain 3 sections to represent the 3 columns of the mega menu. They'll each have an ID each, so if you don't know how to do that, you hold down Alt and VS Code. So we'll say first, more nav, obviously need to change these individually. Second, third, and inside the first section I'm going to create 2 paragraphs to represent the 2 rows in the first column of the mega menu on the actual Cisco website. So the first paragraph will be pushed downwards via inline styling, so margin top 20 pixels. You give it a class, selected first column. This is basically to make this paragraph the default selection of the mega menu. You'll see what I mean by this when I move on to the JavaScript. So ID will be first, col 1. Again, this is for JavaScript ID, and have an on-click listener. I'll change first col, and you pass in this, which is the equivalent of event.target in JavaScript. Now the content of the paragraph will be training and event. So follow the format in the Cisco mega menu. And the second paragraph will say bye, and we'll give it an ID and the same on-click listener. So we'll just copy this here, paste it in like that. Whoops, what's going on here? Okay, we'll just copy this actually, because that's causing errors. And then we'll change this to first col 2. And then, yeah, we'll copy this. And that's done like so. And now we move on to the second section. And we're going to use a similar format as this one. We'll use paragraphs. We'll just copy these 2 paragraphs just for brevity. Change this just to training. Change the ID to second col 1. And we'll say selected second column. And then we'll change the method to be, the on-click method to be second col. And then for the second paragraph we'll change this again, second col 2, and then again we'll use the same event handler method to second, and then it will say, and then it's going to say certifications, and then we'll copy this paragraph 3 more times. This one will say exams. Next one will say training by technology, and the last one will say events and webinars, and then we'll change the numbers, so 3, 4, 5, so it's right now. Now in the last section, this section is going to be a grid in itself with 2 columns and a maximum of 4 rows. So to create this, we're going to create 2 divs to represent the columns. It will have a class of third nav col. I'm going to copy it because remember I said 2 columns. Inside we'll say create a div. Its class will be third nav header, and then its text will be training in all caps. Below that we're going to create 4 paragraph elements, which is placeholders basically, sub 1, 2, 3, 4, obviously you need to change the numbers around. And then we're going to create, below this we're going to create another header, because this will be the beginning of a new row. Certifications. You can copy these placeholders. And then in the next column we'll just copy this formatting. But we're only going to change the headers to still needs to be all capitals. I need 2 ellipses, and then partner training. And then if we see what this looks like, it's absolutely styled not how we want it, so we need to style this now. So in the style sheet we're going to create a new comment to separate things out from the main navigation. Okay, so we'll say more nav to represent the mega menu, and then more nav, we'll have position absolute, because it's a mega menu, so we want it to be outside of the regular HTML document flow. So left will be 0, right will be 0, and margin will be auto. So these last three attributes will center the absolute position element horizontally in the document. And then we'll say display grid, because I remember I said it's going to have 3 columns, so we'll create these columns now. 1 FR, 1 FR, 4 FR. So this will create 3 columns, but the 4th column will be 4 times the size of the first 2 columns individually. Width will be 100%, but we're going to do the same max width as before. So 1700 pixels. And then height will be 609 pixels. Background color will be white. I'm going to give it a box shadow, but only on the top. So we'll say 0 horizontal offset, 10 pixels vertical offset, 10 pixels blur, minus 10 pixels spread. So basically it will push the box shadow outwards. So basically it will only be displayed on the top edge of the box because we put an offset there. So by default it's automatic. It favors the topmost side than the bottommost side. And then RGBA, we'll say 3 zeros to create black, and then 0.2 opacity, and then we'll use inset keyword to make the box shadow an inner box shadow rather than outer box shadow. And then we're going to give it a clip path, which will use an animation. We give it the values as 0, 0, 100%, 0, 100%, 0, whoops, and then 0, 0. So the reason for this is because 0, 0 is the top left edge, 100% 0 is the top right edge, 100% 0 is the bottom right edge, and 0, 0 is the bottom left edge. So in other words, it's it's horizontally it's 100%, but vertically it's 0%. So in other words, it won't be displayed currently. But obviously we're going to comment this out because we want to see what we've actually created. And this is what we've created here. As you can see, this box shadow is on the inside and it's only displayed on the top. Problem with this though is they've actually got a box shadow on the outer as well, but they only have a box shadow inner on the top. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the pseudo elements before on more nav. So say more nav colon colon before, and this will create an element inside as the first child of more nav. Its width will be 100%. Its height will be also 100%. Position will be absolute because we want it outside of the HTML document flow. Background color, we don't need to see it, only the box shadow, so we can say transparent. Box shadow will say 0, 5 pixels, 10 pixels RGBA. So black and then 0.1 opacity. So now it will be displayed everywhere on the outside apart from the top. As you can see, it's very faint, but you can see it. It's looking good. And what we'll do now is we're going to create an ID for the overlay, which it's not related to anything currently in the document object model, but you'll see why we create this later on when we do the JavaScript. I'll just create it now, just because it's related to the mega menu styling. Its width will be 100%. Height will also be 100%. Position will be absolute. Its background color will be RGBA 13, 39, 77, 1, box, shadow will be 0.5 pixels, 10 pixels, RGBA, black with 0.1 opacity, and then we'll say Z index, we'll give it a Z index 10 so it's above everything else in the mega menu, so it will cover all the other content in the mega menu. And what we'll do now is we'll style the first more nav, so in other words the first section. We'll give it a background color, RGBA, because we'll be making use of the opacity value. So we'll give it 13, 39, 77, 1. So fully opaque at the moment. Its display will be flex. Flex direction will be column to counteract the default value of row. Now we're going to style the paragraph element inside the first section, or the first more nav ID element. Sorry, we need to actually specify that we're styling the paragraphs like so. Put space there. Color will be white. White. Margin left will be 20 pixels. Padding 20 pixels, 0, 20 pixels all around now. Cursor, the pointer. It's a visual indicator so that they can click on these options. And then font size will be 18 pixels. And then we're going to copy this now because we're going to use a pseudo select for hover. So the styling that will be applied when we're hovering over these paragraph elements. And we'll change the background color to a hex code of 243C5E. So sort of darkish turquoise color. And now we'll style the ID of the second nav. Sorry, second section. Second more nav. Background color will be 1E4471. Display will also be flex. We'll just copy it from here for brevity. Because there's a lot of me typing, I understand that. And then again, likewise, we'll just copy this here. And then we'll style the paragraph, so we'll add P, separated by space. And then we'll copy the values here. The only reason why we're doing this individually is because we want to give it a different pseudo selector of hover. And we'll say background color, it will be 243C5E. Okay, now if you go to a document, you see that we can't actually interact with these two columns on the side. The reason being is because it's being covered by this this pseudo element here, so we're going to say z-index -10, so it's behind everything else in the navbar. And so now you can see that we can hover over these columns, but we still need to style this third column here, so we'll do that now. We'll say third more nav display grid, column gap will be 30 pixels, so add some gap. Grid template columns, I remember I said before, so I will create 2 columns of equal proportion. Margin, nothing on the top or bottom, 30 pixels on left and right. And then we'll say third nav col class, we'll say font size of 18 pixels. And then we'll say third nav header, margin top of 40 pixels, padding left of 15 pixels. Below that we will style the paragraph elements inside the third nav col class, so we'll say add a P there like that. We'll say color, hex code 007493, So 7493. Padding will be 8 pixels, 0, 8 pixels, 15 pixels, and then we'll say border radius 3 pixels, and then we'll add a pseudo select as this, where we add a background color so we can actually see the border radius. So we'll say background color be a hex value of E7 F5 FB. Now if we go back to our document, see what this looks like. As you can see, it's looking good. One thing that we missed out is we need to push this downwards a bit, the second column, because as you can see it's pushed downwards on the actual Cisco website, so we'll just do that using inline styling to not overcomplicate things. So we'll say on this second row, we'll say, sorry, not there, on this second column, we'll say style, margin, top, say 14 pixels, sorry, 40 pixels. So now it'll be pushed downwards a bit to make it look a bit more presentable. And then we go back to our styling. We're pretty much done with the styling now. The things that we need to do now is we need to create the classes. For the JavaScript file, basically. So the animations and the styling that will be applied to the currently selected option on these first two columns. So for example, in the first column it will be this bluish background color, and in the second column it's the white background and blue text. So what we're gonna, in the comment we're gonna say, we'll say more nav toggle, and then we'll say selected first column, because remember we gave training and events this class, because it's the by default it's the selected option of the first column. So we'll say background color will be a hex code of 1E4471, and then we use the important keyword to overwrite all of the background colors that we might have added to the element. For example, from the pseudo selector, we're going to override the background color of the pseudo selector, and then we say selected second column. So the background color of that will be white, and we're going to use the important keyword and all these. Whoops. And then border top left radius, because we're only going to apply border radius to the top left, and bottom left corners 3 pixels, and we'll do the same for the bottom left. So the other two edges of the rectangle will be left alone, they will just be sharpened out. It's only the left edges that will be given a radius. And then we'll say color, change the text color to stand out from the white background. 1E4471, use the important keyword. And then we'll create the animations now, which we'll apply using JavaScript. So again, another comment, animation, oops, at keyframes, open more nav. So this will be the animation that opens the mega menu. So 0%, we're going to copy this clip path, because that will be the starting value. Obviously we're going to uncomment it though. We're using control / and VS Code. I don't know about other text editors, but... And then clip path, 100% will be polygon. We'll copy these because we're only going to tweak it a bit, just to... So basically we're gonna, the mask now will be 100% everything. So I'll say, actually no, it won't be. It'll be a bit larger than 100%. The reason being is because we want to show the border radius. Remember that we added using the pseudo element. So this here, if we just use 100% as the value, then it will clip that border radius, so we won't be able to see it. So we'll say 0, 0 for the top left corner, obviously. 100% naught for the top right corner, 105% naught for the bottom right corner, and then for the bottom left corner we'll say naught, 105, so that should display everything now. And then we'll create the animation that closes the mega menu, so we'll say keyframes, close more nav 0%. This clip path here, we'll just copy it. Actually no, so I made a mistake. So this needs to be 105% because otherwise that's not fully open. Because this bottom right corner needs to be fully the width and fully the height, plus the border radius, plus the box shadow. So that's the reason for that, so we need to copy this. That's what we're going to do. And then 55% we'll say, we'll copy this again, but what we're going to do is we'll change this so it's 25%. So we decrease the width then, but we'll leave this is 105, we'll change the width of this as well, 25, and then we'll leave these values as it is, and then we're going to say 65%, because we're going to include the same values, because we're going to pause it for a second. And there's also something else that I missed out. I need to set the opacity attribute, because we're going to animate the opacity as well. So we'll copy them like that, and then 100% we'll copy this again, and then we'll change this value to 0, and then the bottom left to 0 as well, so it's fully collapsed in on itself vertically. And then we'll make sure that it's invisible as well by saying opacity, change the opacity to 0. And then the final animation that we're going to create, actually no, it's 2 more animations that we need to create. The next one will be this column, the first column. So when you click on here, as you can see, that fades in, but only the first column. So it's the reason why we gave the first column an RGBA for its background color. So we can just animate the alpha value of its background color. So we just copy it here, and then we'll say background color. So it starts off 0 opacity, and then 100% just goes to full opacity like that. The final animation is we'll call it second more nav show. Yeah, so it's if you can see, when we click by, this sort of drops down like that, the second column. So the way that we're going to animate that is by using padding. So we'll say 0%. What we're going to do is we're just going to copy the padding value that we gave its paragraph element, put that as the final value, and then for its starting value we'll say 0, 0, 0, 20 pixels, still want to retain its left padding. Just eliminate everything else, and now finally we're finished with the styling now. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to scroll up to the navbar, and then on the div which contains the text of more, we're going to give it an on-click listener with the event handler of open more nav. So this will be the function that opens and closes the mega menu. So to create this event handler, we need to create the JavaScript file. So we'll say script. At the bottom of the page, you have a script tag, which source is script.js. So we need to create this script.file, scripts.js. Wait, is that what you call it? Yeah. So the function was called open more nav. So we'll say function open more nav. But before this, actually, we're going to create a boolean called let is, well, sorry, not called let. We'll use the let keyword to create the variable, and we'll call it is open more nav, and we'll set it to false because by default the mega menu should be closed. And then the first thing that we will do is we'll set it to be opposite of what its current value was. So the first time they press on the more option, the one with the chevron, the down facing chevron, it will be set to true because by default it's set to false. So if it's set to true, then we need to open the mega menu. So we'll say document.get element by ID up arrow, and then we'll say style.display equals block. For this to work, obviously we'll need to change the arrow to none, so it's not visible by default. So if we refresh now, or not refresh because I'm using live server, currently the arrow is invisible, but if we press more, if we press, oh sorry, there's an error because, yeah, sorry, scripts, oh yeah, I missed out the floor, I knew I made an error somewhere. So and then, yeah, so I'm actually linking to an existing JavaScript file now, so again, if you go back, again, so when you press it, now because it's display block now, so it's visible. And then below that, we'll give the first column its faded animation, so we'll say, again, just for brevity, we'll copy this. I know it's tedious, but I'm not using jQuery because I wanted to keep it pure. So first more nav, and then style animation equals first more nav show 0.3 seconds will be the animation time, and then forwards, so it retains the keyframe. It retains the state of its last frame with animation, and then we'll say what we'll do now is we'll give the mega menu its opening animation, the one where it sort of the one where it wipes down in terms of its visibility, and then we'll say, so we say more nav, because remember that was the ID that we gave it, but we styled its class. We gave it the ID so we could target it in JavaScript, and then style, we'll give say a style animation open more nav 0.2 seconds. I found that was the best time. Forwards again, and then we'll say else. We'll need to close the mega menu. So we'll set the arrow to be none to make it invisible again, and then we'll trigger the mega menu's closing animation, which is called close more nav. Below that, what we need to do is we need to, on the Cisco website, when they trigger the closing animation, you can see that all this text disappears and everything changes color. It's the same color as the first column. So this is why we created the overlay basically, because we're gonna upon mega menu close, so this else block, we're gonna essentially create the overlay. This is the reason why we created, remember, this overlay ID here, even though it doesn't relate to an element actually on the DOM, because we will prepend the overlay element to the DOM and then remove it once that closing animation is finished. So we need to we'll create the variable more nav overlay, we'll call it, and then we'll say document dot create element, create div element, and then we'll set its ID to be more nav overlay, so we've given it the ID now, and then we will create a comment in the else block to future reference to tell us what we're doing, and then we'll say document dot get element by ID, target the more nav, and then we'll say dot prepend more nav overlay. Below that, we're going to create a on animation event listener, so we can reset all the styling ready for the next opening animation. So we'll say reset styling after animation, and then we'll copy this just because it's for ease. Add event listener, animation end, callback function, which is also an arrow function. We'll set the first column's animation to be none, so that animation can repeat basically when it gets reapplied to the first column. And then below that, we'll create comments so we know what we're doing. Remove overlay because that is what we're doing, and then we'll say document dot get element by ID. What is its ID? Well, that's its ID. More nav overlay, and then remove, so remove it from the document object model so it can be re-added upon closing animation again. And now if all is well and good, then when we go to our, okay, actually wait, no, sorry, we need to uncomment this clip path on the more nav, so by default it's not showing. So we click open, again it opens up like that, we click close, the overlay appears and then it closes back in the same way that it does on the Cisco website, but maybe it's a bit fast, so I'm going to say 0.3 seconds on that, So we say open, close, and as you can, yeah, that's looking good now. So it goes boom, and then it closes up like that. Similar to how it does on the actual website. So as you can see, it goes up like that. It's very good. What we need to do now is when we click on these individual rows, we need to apply this white background to each option when we click on them, and same with this one. So this is the reason why we created these on-click event listeners, change first cut, these on-click. The reason why we created these event handlers. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a comment, handle first column, so you know what we're doing, function, and then it's going to have the argument of event, target, so it can get access to the element that we clicked on, and then we're going to say loop through selected, so you know what we're doing. And then we're going to select all the paragraph elements of the first column in the mega menu. So the way that we do that is document, query, selector or hashtag, because we're getting access to the first column section ID, first more nav, space P, for each to loop through them all, result, we'll call the individual paragraph element, callback function, result.class list.remove to remove the selected first column from all of the paragraph elements. So it doesn't matter which one currently has the selected first column class, it will remove it because it will remove it from all of them. Below that we'll say change selected. So we will apply this class to the paragraph element that we just clicked on, which we get access to for event target. So we'll say event target dot class list dot add, and then we add it the class. So if you go to our mega menu now, and as you can see, we can toggle between these two rows here. What we need to do now is when we click on the bar, we want it to display the animation with the second row paragraphs sort of like drop down. So the way that we do that is we say if event target the ID. This is the reason why we gave each one an ID. First call 2, so if they selected the by row, then we want, we'll just copy this because for ease. Second more nav, because we want to target the paragraph elements of the second column. We'll say result.style animate, give them all that opening animation. Second more nav show 0.2 seconds forwards, and this will only be displayed on the first time we select by, just like how it is on the Cisco website, so we're not going to reset it afterwards. So yeah, as you can see, it drops down like that, which is good, it's what we want, but then it only does it once. So now the last thing that we need to do is to do the change second column event handler. So we'll create that. Like with the first one, takes an event target argument which it gets through this keyword, and then we're going to do a similar thing to what we did here, just copy it for brevity. Change this obviously to the relevant ID, and then selected second, we'll change the selected second column, and then we'll do what we did here as well. So don't know why it's like that for. So event target.class, yeah, that's alright, but we just need to change that so it's the right class. And now if we go on to our mega menu, we should be able to click on, we can click on all these individually. Now the last thing that I'm going to show you is how to change the content of this column in relation to which option we're choosing in the second column. I won't do it for all of them because that'll be too long, and I know how long this video is already. So it's similar to what we did here. We create an if statement, event target .id is equal to second col 1, so if they're selecting the first option of the second column, then we'll say document.getElementById. We'll target the third more nav column, and then we'll set the inner HTML to what it currently is. We use backticks so we can write out HTML on multiple lines in a string. We'll copy everything that it's currently containing. So everything in between the opening and closing div. The reason why we're doing this is because it's by default it's selecting the first column anyway. So to see any visual change, we'll need to create one more scenario where if we're selecting the second option, which is represented by second col2 ID. So we'll say second col2, open, copy this, add a semicolon, so it looks nice. And then the only thing we're going to change is we're going to remove this row entirely, like so. We're going to change this to certification. Swap this around. So I need to be down here, and then this header, this row header will be called most popular. And yeah, that's it. We close these because we don't need to see all that because it's too much. And then, okay, this isn't working clearly. It's because we missed out the equal sign. So there you go, silly mistake really, but oh well. Again, close them. And then yeah, so as you can see they're changing now. We haven't done it for the other ones because there's no need. But yeah, this is how you do it. Obviously we haven't changed the second column option either in relation to what we select in the first column. But it doesn't matter, I've given you all you need to know to do that yourself. So if you benefited from this tutorial, then please like and subscribe. You would do me a huge favour, and especially if you benefited from this tutorial, then you can show your appreciation. And also don't hesitate to post any comments. If you have any queries or you want me to clarify my explanation, you want me to elaborate on something that I covered in this video, then just post them in the comments box below and I'll be obliged to answer all of them to the best of my ability. And yeah, so I hope this video was good, I hope you enjoyed it, and peace out.